Hello to all of you who are right on time. We are at the 6 o'clock hour here in Lisbon, Portugal. If you are joining us from across the ocean, it is a lot earlier in the day, probably no matter where you are. Hello and welcome. I'm John McNertney from Green Ocean Global Advisors. And I am here to welcome you to a very special edition. We have some guests with us today of one of our webinars. So before I get kicked off, I'm going to introduce you to in just a second here. I have to give our legal disclosures. We're going to go through a lot of information, and we're going to offer some information from lawyers as well. But none of it constitutes binding information. In fact, it is to be considered educational or entertainment, whoever you are. So all the material has been obtained from sources that we know to be reliable. We do a lot of research here, but I think we'll leave it at that. So who are we listening to today? There is myself. My name is John McNertney, and I am, of course, from the United States of America. Everybody knows this, of course. I've got that lovely accent. I have worked in a variety of institutions over my career, but in short, I have about 18 years of experience doing financial planning work, and I am a certified financial planner, originally from California, but trained in Iowa. If you know where that is, you can raise your hand. And I live in Lisbon, Portugal, with my family and growing cast of characters here, including Ryan Ahrens, my partner and Chief Investment Officer at Green Ocean Global Advisors. Ryan hails from California as well, and has a storied career as well. He's currently setting up our Seattle, Washington office, but he is also here in Portugal today as well. So exciting. We're also going to have Joana Mendonca and Adalberto Puca. I hope I didn't slaughter the pronunciation there. Guys, do you want to say hello?
Hello, I'm Joana. Just to add a quick info here, I'm a lawyer, 17 years experience, mainly in migration, not only in migration, but mainly in migration in Portugal and other countries.
And a published author as well. Isn't that right?
Mm, Depends if you consider articles.
I think we'll give that the merit award. And then Adalberto?
Yes, so my name is Alberto Puca, although I think everyone just calls me Puca. I am an investment migration consultant, so I help clients navigate the world of golden visas, citizenship by investment, and a few other programs out there. And my role within the company is also to assist in the business development. So I'll be discussing a bit about the golden visa today.
Excellent. And it should be mentioned that both of them are coming to us from Global Citizen Solutions. We might add an excellent place to find additional information, and please ask them lots of good questions in the Q&A because we have them for free this afternoon. But you should follow up with them for their paid service later on because, you know, they're crack experts. So let's get started, shall we? Today, we are going to talk golden visas and immigration. And so we will be going through a brief overview of the program. I will, at which point we'll shift over to Adalberto and Joana. They'll give us a brief presentation on some of the changes that have been made in the program. We'll talk a little bit about AIMA, the recently restructured CEF institution. We'll talk about different golden visa investment options. We'll talk about processing timelines, as there are frequently delays here in Portugal. Talk a little bit about nationality laws and legal implications, as well as the regulatory landscape before we cut to Q&A. So, what do we know about these golden visa programs? The programs were established in 2012. So we are now just over a decade. And they were designed to attract, what do you think? Money, talent, individuals that can help to build on the strength within Portugal. And they offer residency through approved investments. That is what these golden visa investments are. But the key benefits, of course, to these are residency rights. If you do not have a visa, then you don't have a right to be here, just like any country. But through these investments, you can gain residency initially, and then citizenship after a 5-year path has been satisfied. They also allow family reunification for direct family, for your spouse, your children, and any other dependents that you may have. A lot of people have questions about this. What can we buy? What can we invest in? And up until 2023, we could invest in real estate. That was probably the most disappointing option that was knocked off when in October of 2023, the government no longer granted citizenship by investment through real estate. So now there is an emphasis on the funds for the purpose of job creation, scientific or technological research, and there are some limited programs that offer citizenship through heritage. Legislative changes were recently driven by the Mais Habit Sau law aimed at reducing pressure on housing supply. Essentially, there has been some gentrification problems. Essentially, it's a small-ish country. I think we can say that. And so having a lot of wealthy immigrants coming in, while it is wonderful, it's created some of the expected issues that you might think that you would see. So so that's really all I wanted to cover before we jump over to our guests. I'm going to load up their set of slides here.
Thank you, John. So I'll start just by giving a brief introduction, and I think Joanna can discuss a few technical aspects. So if you want to go to the next slide, so at Global Citizen Solutions, so as John has explained, we assist in global mobility services. So anything from golden visas, citizenship by investments, as well as passive income visas, digital nomad visas. So that's our remit. We get to know our clients very well, and we advise on the various solutions that exist globally. We do have a large office in Lisbon. So we do have a very robust legal team, which Joanna leads. We have assisted over 10,000 clients in our time, and currently work with over 40 different investment migration options globally, spanning from Europe, North America, Latin America, Asia, and so on. And we have just recently crossed the 100 people threshold at our company, so we're very excited about that. Growing rapidly, but all of that comes from the work that we've been doing with our clients. I think we lost a slide there. There we go. If we can jump onto the next one. I think this year has been a particularly interesting one when we look at the Portugal immigration programs. Not just because we've seen not some, but quite a bit of intent from the government to create some legislative regimes, but also because we've seen public and judicial responses to this intent. So we've seen significant developments both in terms of the immigration landscape, so everything that's to come, but at the same time we've seen very strong judicial decisions that give a lot of confidence in the Portuguese immigration programs, and I think Joanna can take over from here and just outline everything that's happened so far.
Thank you, Puka. So yeah, we had some action this summer. Portuguese. I'm a Portuguese, so I can say this. It's okay. Portuguese government, even they change, we have elections, but they always like to provide us with some action in terms of amendments. As John said, we had large amendments in 2023 and a gold rush of people looking for the real estate option that was terminated, but the golden visa is still here. Now it's funds, and now they're changing it a little bit again. Not the golden visa, but still has some impacts. And there's a lot of misinformation. All these groups and communities, they work with misinformation, misleading quotes. So I'll try to make it easier for everyone. First important note, there are 2 legal amendments in motion right now. One of them aims to change the immigration, what we call the immigration law. That one does not impact the golden visa directly. The golden visa is, the legal provisions for the golden visa are inserted in that law, but we lost sharing of the slide, John. That's
Sorry, I wanted to make sure, just really quick, anybody that has questions can chime in on the Q&A. We'll be collecting questions. And then I stopped sharing because it looked like you might be going on a nice little talk here. So, but I'll restore it for you.
Yeah. Okay, no problem. So we have these 2 laws being proposed to be changed. Immigration law, those amendments do not affect directly the golden visa. These ones was the one that the parliament approved in July. It went to the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court said, no, you cannot do those changes. That's not compliant with the Constitution. But there was a significant development for the golden visa, because there was one small part of that law where the government said golden visas can maintain their family reunification rights. We are removing family reunification rights for everyone else. And the Constitutional Court was supposed to assess if we can have different regimes. And they said, you can have the difference. Golden visa is different enough for you to have a different regime. So this was very important because the Constitutional Court recognized golden visa as a separate instrument with different rules. We have a physical presence requirement that is different. So this is a kind of legitimization for the golden visa. Obviously, they said that removing family reunification rights for other visas was not compliant with the Constitution. But it wasn't because we had different regimes. It was because removing them was not compliant. So this is why on the side we have the maintenance of family reunification rights. This was a win. These amendments to the immigration law are being resumed in September. So the parliament came back from the summer break on September 15th. We are now expecting, after the ruling from the Constitutional Court, we are expecting them to come back with a different version. It's not expected that they change the golden visa requirements or anything. There's a little bit of word on the street that they are changing the golden visa requirements, but in the sense of creating new options. So I think that so far by now, the golden visa is not at stake at all. And the only consequences we can discuss of these amendments are the ones that regard the other law that is being changed, the citizenship law. Nevertheless, still on this topic, what we learned from this Constitutional Court, all this action, is this government is committed to change migration. This is an urgent matter and a top priority. So we will probably be discussing migration in all its forms and paths for the next couple of weeks or months. And I think we can proceed to the next one now. Please, John. Okay, so as I said, the Constitutional Court upheld the use of subpoenas to enforce AIMA to proceed quickly in procedures. This is something the government was trying to block. Just so you have an idea, we had a backlog of submissions with AIMA, and then when lawyers started filing subpoenas, that backlog, or at least part of the backlog, moved to the court. Everyone went to the court, and the court was clogged with subpoenas trying to expedite the procedures. The government tried to say that subpoenas were not an adequate mean to do this. The court says, yes, they are, so keep going. So we expect subpoenas to get some more traction in the coming months. Also, we wrote here, strong precedent protecting resident rights. It's important to say that Portugal doesn't work with case law or precedent system. Still, we have the Constitutional Court saying that saying what is compliant with the Constitution and what it's not, and it matters. So from this point on, the government knows that they have to work within that framework. On the parts that were struck down, as I said, removing family reunification restrictions, extended waiting periods to cover for the delays with AIMA, the government tried to say now the approval deadlines will be much bigger than they used to be. And the court said they can't be because residency rights are fundamental rights. And we had some vague decision criteria that the court also blocked. So overall, the Constitutional Court decision, even though it's not directed to the golden visas, means there is an overarching commitment to maintain expectations and to protect everyone that's coming in, that, or at least that we will maintain the rules and the constitutional guarantees for everyone coming in. They can trust the Constitution. I think that's the general idea that comes from here. Next one. So I said 2 laws. They proposed the amendments of both in July. One was immediately decided, approved, Constitutional Court, now they're reviewing. The other one, something very important happened. They were trying to change the citizenship path of 5 years, the one that John mentioned at the beginning, to a 10-year path. And immediately the question everyone asks is, when are we going to apply these 10 years? Someone that started their golden visa now, will this person need to comply with a 5 or a 10-year path? Isn't 10 years enough? And on top, they are bringing more requirements like a cultural test, or showing ties and a bond to the country. What happened was, fortunately, the person that actually wrote the Portuguese Constitution, one of the most important, the authors, is still alive and is a teacher in a Portuguese law school. And he wrote this legal opinion on the amendments and said that people that started their procedure had legal expectations that the Constitution would protect. So these amendments, it said many things. It's a 80 pages legal opinion. I'm making it very, very simple. But what he said is that those amendments that the government proposed probably would be blocked by the Constitution. And this legal opinion was sent directly to the government. What happened immediately was that the government stopped, they paused the amendments to the citizenship law, and they said, okay, we are readdressing this in September. We are now waiting for them to bring a new version. Again, they say October, we have annual budget to be discussed in October. So we expect beginning or mid-October for them to come up with a new version. Given that this author is the so-called father of the Constitution and is a major authority in terms of constitutional law, from the moment he said that changing the rules along the way would frustrate these expectations, and these expectations are protected by constitutional law, I think we have a shot of, I think it's okay to believe that maybe they won't change the rules for everyone that's already inside the program. My personal opinion is that maybe the rules will change because there's a political will to do so, but it will be difficult to overcome these legitimate expectations theory because those are protected by the Constitution. So more news on this from October onwards. Still, I think we can move to the next slide. I think that what we are advocating for since July, probably Probably we'll see some reflections of these in the amendments, namely transitional provisions for those who already submitted applications. I'm not even discussing people that submitted citizenship applications. Those are covered, obviously. But I mean, people starting the golden visa now, if the rule now is 5 years, will they access 5 years? I think there's a chance that it will happen. Let's see. Safeguarding current timelines for existing golden visa holders. This is very important. Golden visa holders wait for 24 to 36 months to have one decision or a card. Obviously, and this is something that the government said, recognized more than a year ago, what the government said was, obviously, the clock starts when you submit, when you comply, not when you get the card, because you cannot have some, because otherwise you're wasting 3 years because of our, and by our, I mean Portuguese government delays, you're wasting 3 years of your timeline. And they said the clock will start from the moment you submit a procedure that ends up being successful. They tried to revoke that in these amendments. I believe they won't be able to do so, but again, this is something else that's at stake. When will the clock for citizenship start? Submission or when the card is issued? And this is a lot because it's 3 years, it's a 3-year difference. The 5-year pathway to citizenship maintained. This is also something we are advocating for. Let's see. I'm hopeful that we will be able to reach that point, but obviously the Portuguese government loves this action and this adrenaline. So we'll need to wait for the next episodes of the soap opera.
Thank you, Joana. Right, so I think just to do a sum up, so although there are some propositions, and these can sometimes sound a bit scary, they can sound a little bit worrisome. It's always important when it comes to Portugal to wait, because the legislative process is often a lengthy one, and the outcome is very, very rarely the same as what is proposed. So there's still a lot of parliamentary debate, negotiations, court evaluations to take place. And the key takeaways are, so far, the court decisions have been very positive on the side of those of us who are expecting the government to maintain expectations. The submitted case from mid-January onwards, we're actually seeing schedules for biometric appointments. So that's actually something that was somewhat promised by the government, which was their focus on the backlog in Q3 and Q4 of this year. So they are implementing some changes to try to reduce the backlog, and we are seeing some movement. And then we are also going to get some news soon. So now that Parliament is back from recess, September is going to prove a month of some action. So we're still to see something happen. And can we go on to the next slide, please, John? And then I think the key element to take away from all of this is the stability of the Portuguese judicial system. So although there have been attempts in the past, especially as you've mentioned, John, previously when real estate was removed, there have been often movements to curtail the program, but it has remained strong. The courts have always been somewhat reasonable. And at this moment, we are still seeing a significant number of investors starting the process. If anything, these announcements have actually incentivized people to start the process sooner rather than later, because they want to at least give themselves a chance of counting within those that had reasonable expectations, had their applications submitted prior to the decision. We always say this isn't something we can guarantee, but they often say that a chance is better than nothing, and they would have moved forward with the program anyway. But in that sense, our clients often also look at the Golden Visa program in the context of Europe, right? I think there's a bit more on the next slide, but we cannot look at Portugal just in a vacuum. There are other Golden Visa programs out there, but the reason why Portugal always stands out is that it is very flexible. So whereas Italy, Greece, Cyprus, Malta, these countries do have golden visas, the stay requirements are significantly higher than Portugal. Often you're going to have to spend over 183 days plus per year, in Greece for 7 years, in Italy for 10 years before you qualify for citizenship. So even if the changes were to take place, I strongly believe that Portugal still remains the most attractive golden visa option out there, because precisely of that flexibility. Even though there are faster programs and other investment options out there, again, Portugal remains a very attractive possibility.
Okay, so we have had a number of questions coming in, guys. Thank you, by the way. That was really excellent. I'm going to give a couple of questions now before I head into some additional information, because it's a relevant time for this. So I'm going to read those questions out for the two of you really quickly here, and hopefully we can get some good Q&A going from this. So first is from one of our clients here at Green Ocean. Ron says, one thing that remains opaque is the investment holding period. So assuming that you've passed the investment holding period, which is 5 years for this gentleman and for a lot of people, when can the return of capital be expected? Is it after the original 5 years? Is it after granting permanent residency? Is it after applying for citizenship? Or is it after citizenship has been granted? Is there any relationship with these things with golden visas?
I think that's an excellent question.
Yeah.
I would love to have an answer from AIMA on that. I don't. Sometimes we have some answers on the counter. I would say that at least until you complete your first 5 years of residency and you obtain the certificate that says you were a legal resident for 5 years, for that period, for sure. Most funds are now prepared for a 5 to 7 years maturity period, exactly to make sure you have 2 years extra because of the backlog. So what we see is most clients hold their investments for at least 7 years just to make sure. Technically, it's 5 years. That's what the law says. You commit to maintain for 5 years. If you don't, and if they challenge it, ultimately you can discuss this through in court. But to my clients, to make sure, because it's all, even when you have a perfect and streamlined procedure, it is still hard to get things going. So if you change those small parts, typically it gets even harder. So what we recommend to clients is at least 7 years, 5 years from the card, the first card. That's more or less what we are recommending now. And funds, they are helping with this by extending the holding periods.
Interesting. Another question, we have an attendee asking, what are the timelines that you're seeing with the processing of those golden visa applications? For this person, they submitted their application in 2021, and they had their biometrics in 2023, and then
it
they
doesn't
haven't
have a
seen.
card. Yeah.
Yes.
There's not too many in that situation, but there are still some. Probably submitted in December 2021 at these biometrics, depending on the location or biometrics. It can take longer or not. Some people that collected biometrics in Lisboa are being more delayed than the ones that collected in Oporto. I can say that we have not too many, but we have some clients still in the same situation. But that's AIMA's top priority now. So reaching out to AIMA or through court or directly for situations like those are the kind of situations that they signal and they tend to act fast. Because if they move fast, if they act probably AIMA will make sure that to issue their cards. For all other cases that are from 2022 onwards, I would say cards are still taking at least 6 months, at least.
Okay, we got an easy question here. We have an attendee asking, when you get a residency visa, you can visit other areas of Europe past the 90-day window period for US citizens. Is that right? So can you access anywhere within the Schengen region, carte blanche,
No.
or no?
No. So they spent, you have a residency card in Portugal, they spent here are not counting for those 90. So you can spend the 90 days outside Portugal. Then there's a little something there. Some countries like the US and Canada also have special treaties with some countries. So in some specific countries of the Schengen area, you can have more than the 90 days because they have a special agreement with the US that was signed even before the Schengen area. And those agreements are still honored to this day. So
Excellent.
if you
And
research a little bit, it's possible.
that's based on the goodwill that Europeans have towards America, right? And hopefully that will persist. It's an interesting time. A question from someone named Robert. If you're married to a Portuguese citizen, does this mean that you have no EU reunification rights? And
You
this person
do.
says, can you expand on specifically what the ending of family reunification impacts? Yeah,
If you're married to a Portuguese citizen, you
right.
can obtain citizenship. So it's not that hard. Doesn't even have the language requirement. So that part's not hard. If you don't want to obtain citizenship, you can request a special reunification visa called the Article 15, which is applicable to Portuguese citizens and European citizens. So if you're married to a French citizen, you can request your family reunification in Portugal in the same way. And what happened with family reunification was the government was trying to prevent the relocation visa applicants, so the famous D7s and D8s, the digital nomads, they were supposed to come to Portugal by themselves and the family would join them later on, 2 years later. That proposal was blocked. So now so far, they will be able to apply at the same time with the main applicant, the family and the D7, or that's the family and the digital nomad.
Okay, that's a really good answer. Thank you for that, Joanna. We have one more question, and then I'm going to do some more of our information, and then we'll go to general Q&A. Mike asks, can you tell us more about the cultural investments and the heritage approach and what the economic requirements are for this one?
Okay, so it's 250, the investment. It doesn't say, the legal provision doesn't say it has to be a donation, but given that you need a sponsoring entity, that it's either a foundation or as some public side, the options available for this type of investment are all donations right now. You'll be able to make a 200 investment if it's in a low density area, but this is, to be honest, it's very hard to obtain slots. There are just a few investments available. When they are quickly taken. So I would say what's more realistic is expect a 250 donation in arts or culture. No returns, okay? Besides maybe your name engraved somewhere.
Hey,
No more
that's
than that
something.
so far. Yeah, it's something.
Okay, so guys, we're going to cover some more Q&A. Really great. I am a reader, okay, and so I must confess I prepare all these slides and they're full of information. Before we started, Shawana and Adalberto were just like, "Oh man, your slide deck, John." But I'll take us through this quickly, I promise you. So I think that the movement from CEF to AIMA is pretty fascinating. And so I prepared a quick slide on this one. There was an incident at the airport here in Lisbon, I think, that generated a lot of controversy that led up to this moment where CEF needed to go out. There was a lot of bad blood around this, and they formed the new AIMA program. And so this was in 2023. Now there's more of a focus on administrative policy and less on law enforcement. They handle all of the work that was formerly done by CEF, all of the renewals, the approvals, the tracking, and we have supposedly more streamlined workflows, which might result in faster processing times. There's a lot more service centers, digital systems, et cetera. And so by the numbers, we have had 450,000 applications from CEF that have been transferred over to AIMA. We've had 123,000 residence permits approved, 170,000 cases archived with no applicant responses, and the golden visa processing time is said to be 12 to 24 months. No thanks, of course, to some of our attendees here who have said otherwise. It sometimes happens. And the target here is a backlog to be cleared by the end of 2025. Hopes springs eternal. So lately, we have been told that there will be a digital submission portal launching in the new year. There is an online renewal platform that's live. I don't know if it's working perfectly, and there is to be a staff increase as well. There was actually a question around this biometric capacity that maybe we can answer really quick. Joanna, have you heard about this, that there's going to be a new biometrics process or some expanded process here?
Word on the street, again, is that they will book all biometrics for pending golden visas during Q4, beginning of Q1 2026. I don't know if they have the capacity, but apparently they have new machines, new centers, as you said. So far, the biometrics I'm seeing are still from old cases, 2020, 2021 cases, like the other one we mentioned, and I'm not yet seeing a boom of biometrics for client spending in the meantime.
Okay, so TBD, to be discovered. Kind of like those, if you've been to the Lisbon airport lately, there's a bunch of machines off in the corner that they're supposedly just about to fire up, but you'll have to wait for that. So we've gone through the golden visa. So I'm going to sort of fly forward through some of this. Nationality law is interesting. Now, this has been covered by Joanna as well. And this is where I want to point out that if you are interested in my slides and the slides presented here by Puka and Joanna, please write us an email. We'd be happy to share all of these extensive grids that we've assigned for you. What to expect in the future. This is kind of interesting to me. So I have experience in private equity, and so I'm always interested in what's inside of the golden visa funds. And what we're being told is that there are a number of funds that are being introduced now or are going to be introduced soon that will put more ESG and sustainability focus out there. So that's to say that like a lot of the funds that we're seeing in the past have focused on real estate development. There is going to be a move gradually towards a broadening of the types of golden visa funds available. So you'll see more sustainability and ESG options. There's also going to be some visa tailored funds. There's already a lot of these in existence, and these are going to be specialized funds that focus on things like technology. Lisbon has actually become something of a hub for tech workers, and so there are going to be some interesting accelerators, things that you can invest in if you hope that Lisbon is going to become the new San Francisco. In the good ways, I hope. I certainly do. And then there are going to be a lot of diversified investment options. There already are, but to expand upon the focus on tech that I spoke of up here, there's just going to be a lot of Portuguese startups, we hope, that are going to give young Portuguese people a place to work and estrangeiros a place to invest some capital. Portugal versus other EU programs. Our guests have spoken to this as well, but I thought it would be nice to consolidate a slide. There has been some chatter in the Green Ocean offices lately that Greece looks like it's going to be a hot prospect in the future. I think that that's possibly true. Although they might be less flexible than the Portuguese government, they have been good enough to allow us to continue to invest in real estate in Greece. And there's very low requirements to live in the country while you wait for your visa to settle. Spain, across the board, on the other hand, has remained a very difficult place to invest. It does not have the real estate option. their legal framework is much less forgiving. I have some other financial advisors that work in Spain, and they're always telling me this, that Spain can be a difficult country to do business in because they're more strict. And so once again, I just offer this to you. Write me if you would like to take all of our research. And then we have common do's and don'ts. And I will summarize this for you in this. Don't rely on outdated information. Because again, as our guests have said, the Portuguese government likes to make changes. It's a smaller country, I think, is why they can turn a little bit more on a dime. But then again, I shouldn't say that because the US has been pretty bumpy lately too. So they can change things. Rely on up-to-date information. Don't just rely on your favorite Facebook groups. I'm looking at you, some of my favorite Facebook groups. I don't hate them, but work with experienced advisors when you can, because those of us in this call, we're doing this every single day to the best of our abilities. And that is all of the information that I have thought to provide. And as always, I actually like to talk to Ryan. We're an investment company, and so I always bring our chief investment officer to just take us through some things that are on our clients' minds. And I'll let you do your thing, Ryan, for a few minutes, and then we will wrap up here with Q&A.
I appreciate that. Sorry about the echo in advance if it's too brutal. I'm in a pretty echoey room here right across the way from John. I am in Lisbon here today and this week. I also think that there's a lot of things to talk about in the market, so glad we're getting a chance to do that here today. Year to date, as far as the grid goes, developed markets, think Europe, still looking to be in the pole position. Emerging markets, think China, India, Brazil, a little bit behind that, but actually having a really strong year as well. Large cap US is in green right there, and we're at about 10.8% as of the end of August, but there's some updates to that. Go ahead, John, on the next one, please. And here is the year to date on the three major US indexes. Blue is the S&P 500, 13.7 year to date as of today. We went on a pretty strong run right here. What happened, right? So NASDAQ and the S&P really climbed quickly. That was because the Fed came out and did one of the two things that they can do, which is talked about changing rates. And then as we know, they changed rates last week. More on that to come. Go ahead and hit the next one, John. But yeah, the market likes to price these things in pretty quickly. So let's check in on valuation considerations. Price to earnings ratio average on the S&P 500 right now, 22.2x. That is not necessarily indicative of, recession is coming. These things can get up higher in events where we've got a pulling back. We've got some economic crises like the COVID crisis. In this case, it really is back to what I said on the last webinar, heavy reinvestment into the infrastructure of especially the AI leading companies, and a lot of that's paying off. So that said, I think it looks like investors are a little ahead of profit increases, and that does make things a little more sensitive if we get some negative earnings reports or we get a few of those from some of the big major players in the stock market. So overall, a pretty highly valuated investment picture right now, with the average line being here. We're above even a standard deviation of average. So we're into some somewhat choppy waters that make things a little bit harder to make the case for, nonstop 20% years back to back to back to back. Go ahead and go to the next one. On that note, this is a little busy, but bear with me. US S&P 500, here's Eurozone, right? So what are we looking at versus the rest of the world? US, Europe minus the UK, this goes back to 1987. I mean, the US growth story since the advent of technology has really been one for the storybooks. They're writing books about it now and will continue to. Go ahead and go to the next one, John. But let's look specifically at how different countries are doing, or areas of the world are doing year-to-date 2025, right? So 15-year annual, we'll look at in a moment. But the Eurozone still leading the pack when we are US investors in the Eurozone. Without that big purple slice of our dollar falling versus the euro, it's not quite as strong of a prospect. And then actually, interestingly, look at where China's at year to date. When we were looking at this last time, it was at about 19, so it's 10% in the last quarter. Gotta love the expectation of lower interest rates for our largest bond holder, which is China. Go ahead and go to the next. And then I found that this was pretty interesting. So in light of this lower dollar, here's one of the good things that can happen when we have a lower dollar. Foreign funds come in. You know, hey, my euro buys me more stock. Why not do that? That's what I think a lot of European fund managers and in some cases governments, which are some of the bigger buyers of treasuries, have done. So we've seen a pretty solid bit of foreign investment at this time with these strong exchange rates, which is at least a little bit, let's say, calming about the future of exchange rates, because I don't think that these funds are making those kinds of moves if they think that the dollar will go even lower, but more on that as it comes out. Federal funds rate. So here's the big piece of news from last week. We went from 4.33 to 4.08 or 09 in this chart. We have gone down in the federal funds rate. Go ahead, next one, John. Been talking about this for a long time, but where are we as far as expectations go? So a couple of things, but basically from the horse's mouth is the blue, FOMC, and that's expected to end the year at 3.90. So that would be another about, call it a 0.15, 15 basis point or 0.25% rate cut, but the market has priced in 3.8. So there is a little bit of a difference there, right? The market's got a bit of exuberance and they seem to be running ahead of what the Fed's actual policies are. And then the long-term projection from the Fed, still aiming for 3%. Their target is 2% inflation. Updated numbers when Jerome Powell spoke last week put us at about 1.5 on the year. Not bad heading into October here soon. So we shall see. Go ahead and go to the next one, John. Wanted to point this out. This is a bit busy. You'll get the slide deck after if you guys are interested. But basically, real yields versus nominal yields. Basically, inflation, what do you get from the Fed? And if that number is below this line, that's bad, right? So that's to say that your bonds are not getting you more than what inflation is. And that's when we start to have to look at other ideas for investing. This is what kind of pushes people into equity markets more often than not. Right now, even with the reduced interest rate, we still expect that we're going to be getting more from our safe bond investments than inflation is going to cost us, we hope. Go ahead and go to the next. Exchange rates, 0.85. Go one more, John. Or if you're doing it from the other side, 1.18. There is a difference there. It is the spread of how people who do currency exchange make money. Yep, right, beautiful. Go one more, please. That's been holding pretty well. And then back to this again, right? Weaker dollar, stronger foreign investment can become the critical mass we need to start moving in the upward direction again. Go ahead and go next. I'm almost done. Checking in on tariffs. This is the big story from the US government side of things. At their peak in April of 2025, statutory or average rate was 30% across the board. We had different countries that were being picked on specifically. Now the across the board average rate 19.2. But that does seem to be pretty locked in. We don't have a whole lot of tweets happening about it because that's how policy happens now. We seem to be stabilized at about 19.2. Go ahead and go to the next, and this will be the last slide. US dollar level versus the trade imbalance. And, this is part of what they're trying to address. Pretty massive trade imbalance. And that's not like it just happened this year. So there's a lot more imports than exports. The idea being if we add tariffs to those imports, then perhaps it'll further stimulate US manufacturing or inside intra-country fulfillment of consumer demands. The consumer-based economy here in America does kind of churn the world's economy. And there we go.
Sorry, guys. We do money every day here, so we always like to talk about these things. So Joanna and Puka, I appreciate your patience here. We help people with all of these things, and so do the citizens. You guys do this too. We help people in a pre-move acclimation. We hope that people become integrated quite well when they move abroad, and that is why financial advisors like us exist. I think among many other reasons. So that brings us pulling into the station here. So I do have a few more Q&A, so I'm going to take it to Q&A. So let's warm up our answering here once again, Joanna and Puka, with our first question is from Robert. And this is, I think, going to be a simple one. Robert asks, what are the reference countries that have agreements with the US that allow for more than a 90-day stay? Interesting.
I cannot tell from the top of my head each country, but there are several in Europe, at least France, the UK, not inside the Schengen area. They do have something different, but I don't know from the top of my head. This is something I can quickly research, and in a few minutes, I will be able to answer in a more comprehensive way.
Okay. That's an awesome answer. That is what professionals answer with is, I don't know off the top of my head, but give me a call. I will tell you. Another attendee asks, is there a chance the citizenship option post-residency won't exist in the future? And can you offer any guarantees on this? I hate the G word. What say you guys?
I would love to offer some guarantees, but here, what offers any guarantees is the Constitution. I can't think of a change so big that we would lose naturalization, becoming a citizen for being a resident for a given period. That's the situation you have in, for example, in Middle Eastern countries where you cannot obtain citizenship by living and bonding with the country. In Europe, mainland, and not only mainland, typically it's an historical thing. You can obtain if you live long enough in a given country. So I think that's a political issue, not even a legal issue. We can speculate. I don't think so. And I don't expect that to happen, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't either. Is there a chance that we can invest in a US 501c3 for the cultural donation and for anybody, including you guys, Joanna and Puka, that's asking if a nonprofit from the US can allocate funds from within the charitable nonprofit to Portugal? I don't know if you have anything to say on this. I don't think so, but we will have to research that. But what do you think? Have you seen this?
No, there's lots of people asking how to leverage tax advantages in the US for donations and how to use them, channel them to Portugal. That's a common question. The requirements from the Golden Visa standing point are the money has to come from abroad. That part is okay. In the case of donations, the money will have to land in a Portuguese bank account under the name of the investor, of the applicant. This for compliance reasons. If that money that lands in the Portuguese bank account comes from a different structure, this is typically not an issue. The bank will ask you for beneficial owner, origin of funds, source of funds. The Golden Visa won't analyze where the funds are coming from in the US and if they have an incumbency, if they come from a different institution, that doesn't matter, provided that the money is legit and comes from abroad and was channeled through a Portuguese bank account under the name of the main applicant, because that guarantees that the European standards for AML compliance were verified. If they can't do that, typically I know the problem happens with this institution, with the US, not allowing the money to be channeled through the Portuguese bank account under the name of the main applicant. They typically have asked for the money to be held under that institution's name. So that's as far as I can go in terms of compliance with the system.
Well, Joanna, and it just so happens that I have actually we have done some research on this question as well. And what you're thinking of is the sort of tax advantaged accounts like an IRA or a Roth IRA. You can, in fact, you can do a checkbook IRA distribution.
With those self-directed IRA, yes, now it's possible. That's investment funds, and investment funds, not necessarily you need the bank account in Portugal to open the bank account with the fund. Cultural requires a separate bank account.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, so those are different, guys. Those are different things. So Golden Visa investment, cultural heritage, those would be different. And I think it would be more difficult to make the case to your self-directed IRA that you're making a form of investment if you're just donating the money. I don't think that would wash. So that's a tricky one. We have another question from Mike. He says, do you build managed funds in Portugal in lieu of buying into an existing fund? do you build managed funds? So, Mike, I'll just answer in this way. I will say that you must buy a government approved, you must invest into a Golden Visa fund, which has already received approval from the CMVM. So it has to be a pre-built fund. There are companies who are assembling funds which have investments that are Portuguese, and in some cases diversified outside of Portugal, including our company. I don't want to plug for us here, even though we can, but we might be participating in a Golden Visa fund coming up as well and manage US investments within that. So that is an interesting development that I would have you reach out to us to explore further. Can you compare, a question from an attendee, can you compare the D7 Portugal visa versus the Golden Visa? That we can do quick, probably, because I think we covered this, right, Joanna?
Yeah, there's main difference. D7 targets relocation. Golden Visa does not require relocation to be maintained. Under the Golden Visa, you can maintain your status despite spending an average of 7 days per year in the country. With on the D7, D8, every D requires you to actually move to Portugal. This will become your center of vital interests, tax residency, household here, your family is expected to move with you, your kids will go to school here, relocation. That's the main difference. Then inside the D category, we have every option available. You earn passive income, you have a D7. You're a digital nomad, you have a D8. You want to be an entrepreneur, you have a D2, and so on, so on. We have options for everyone.
We got something for everybody. Last question here, and then I think we're going to call it. Another Mike asks, do either of your firms do tax planning for US retirees moving to Portugal using a D7 visa? Any webinars on tax planning? And I'll take that one because yes, we do. That is in fact what I have spent a mind-bending amount of time doing. We do run simulations for individuals so that you can understand how the taxes will work in both countries simultaneously in the context of your personalized financial plan. How much of a commercial does that sound like? But that's what we do here. And so if I'm reading this correctly, we have no open questions. Is that right, Ryan? Yeah, I don't see anything.
That is right. A thorough job here. I wanted to say for my part, thank you guys very much for joining us. I think that this was super informative, so appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Joanna, Puka, Global Citizen Solutions, you guys are amazing. Thank you for hosting me last night, and always a source of inspiration and information. Any other thoughts before we jump?
No, thank you for having us. And if we depend on the Portuguese government, I think we'll see each other again soon.
I know that's true. We're right across the street from you guys in any event. So wonderful to see you. Thanks everybody that's still on the call with us today. Contact us if you want to know more or you'd like to get our slide decks, and até já.